Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at Minton's Playhouse here in historic Harlem, New York. When I started these segments 10 years ago and moved here to New York, pianist Antonio Ciacca and his wife took me in as like a brother and a son. Antonio hails by way of Bologna, Italy, and for over the last 25 years, Antonio has made a very important dent in both the academia as well as part as being a band leader here and abroad. Tonight here at Minton's Playhouse, Antonio, who is the artistic director of the La Spezia Jazz Festival in Italy, tonight will be kicking off the 50th anniversary kickoff for the festival, which takes place this month in Italy. Tonight, I had a chance to sit down and break bread with Antonio to talk about the importance of this festival, how he came to the United States to study the music and culture, and what this music means to him as both an educator and a composer. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of the official 50th anniversary kickoff of the La Spezia Jazz Festival, live here at Minton's Playhouse here in Harlem, as part of the Pace Report here in New York City. Congratulations, Antonio. This is the 50th anniversary of the festival. And what better way to kick off the festival is to have it here at the historic Minton's.
Well, this is the temple of our music, and we wanna come in important places, because these venues, they have a vibe, they have a history, they have a feeling to it, and so we wanna be here in the center of the universe.
Give the viewers a little bit of the history of this festival, which takes place in Italy.
Well, the La Spezia Jazz Festival is the oldest jazz festival in Italy. It started in 1969 and never stopped, unlike some other great festivals who had like 2-3 years pause in their history. This festival never stopped programming since its inception in 1969 with the Bill Evans Trio. So I call it the most important and most prestigious festival in Italy. It's the only one who reached the 5th anniversary, and pretty much every jazz master played at the festival, from a young Keith Jarrett to legendary George Coleman to a young Wynton Marsalis, the great Art Blakey, you name it. And it's very peculiar history because the festival never, crossed borders. Never got into this commissions in this other spaces. They stayed in their idiom. And they want nothing but swing. So that's my ideal environment.
Music is hailed as the most universal language in the world, and you come from Italy, and you're a transplant here to New York. And how has the American base supported you musically?
Well, the reason why I decided to move here is because America is a culture of inclusion. Whether in Italy, in Europe, they have a culture of exclusion. They define themselves by excluding others. While in America, we have a way of including other people. So I want my kids to grow up with that type of feeling, inclusion. If somebody comes from the middle of the Caribbean, we want to learn his music. We want to incorporate his ideas, his chops in what we're doing, instead of feel threatened from what he's going to be playing, So this is the major element that brought my career here in my life here.
Io sono molto felice di essere qui questa sera perché finalmente la storia del Festival Jazz della Spezia torna alle origini, perché è da qui che è nato il festival, quando il suo fondatore, che vedrete nelle immagini, sì, per caso rimase qualche mese a New York e conobbe il festival più di 50 anni fa.
Okay, he's very happy to be back in New York because 54 or 55 years ago, the guy who started the festival came to New York and he got sick. So he couldn't leave for a couple of weeks. And while he was trapped in New York, he discovered jazz and he was hanging around all these jazz clubs. And when he went back to La Spezia, he was determined to bring all the guys he met here to La Spezia. So that's how the La Spezia Jazz Festival came to be. So it's ideally 50 years later, the La Spezia Jazz Festival comes back to New York, where it started actually.
Da noi il jazz arrivava con le navi, perché chi viaggiava con le navi portava i dischi dell'America.
So La Spezia is a port,
Yeah.
okay? So there are ships leaving from, not now, but in the 50s, in the 60s, ships used to leave La Spezia to travel to New York. And people were waiting these ships to come back with records, with jazz records.
E io poi sono molto felice perché abbiamo quest'anno un grande direttore artistico, che è Antonio. un amico,
He's happy about
soprattutto
artistic director. Whatever.
un amico, ma soprattutto un grande direttore per fare un grande festival nel suo 50° anniversario.
Okay, well, he says
Come on, you go into
he's happy about artistic director. I'm happy too, actually. He's really good. So this year the theme of this year is civil rights, and Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Dr. King died 50 years ago, and so all the shows are going to reverberate around the idea of civil rights, and because that's never old subject. We're struggling here with civil rights, and they're struggling over there too. In this very moment, they have big problems with civil rights.
Ma la cosa ancora che ci dà più soddisfazione, non solo a me ma a tutta la città, gli amanti di questa magnifica musica, è che porteremo, grazie a Antonio e grazie a una nostra idea, porteremo per la prima volta dei giovani musicisti a suonare qui a New York, grazie al Festival internazionale del Jazz della Spezia, perché con Antonio abbiamo fatto un progetto. Dopo che per 50 anni siamo stati un piccolo punto di riferimento per i musicisti afroamericani in Italia e in Europa, La Spezia oggi vuole essere un punto di riferimento per i giovani talenti italiani in America.
So some of the students of the workshop are going to be featured in October during Italian Jazz Days Festival, and they won a little grant to pay for their transportation, and thanks to the affiliation hopefully with City College, we're going to develop a partnership. And so for the first time, La Spezia is not only importing American musicians, but is also exporting jazz pastafarians.
I remember, we go back a long time, Antonio. I remember you were one of the first guys I met. You and your wife embraced me, both, like you said, with the culture, the food, and soccer. And the thing that I admire about you is that you took time out of your learning to go to Detroit, study at Wayne State. And that opened up a whole nother myriad of how you see and feel the culture and the music.
Well, Detroit came out of my love for Barry Harris, which is from Detroit. And every city has a feel to it. And when I walked in my first ever jazz club in this country, in Detroit, it's called Burt's Marketplace.
I know exactly where it is.
My friend introduced me to the band leader. His name is Rodney Whitaker. And after his name, Rodney Whitaker, the next word coming out of his mouth was, "Do you want to play with us?" See, that doesn't happen in Europe. That never happened in Italy to me. That was a profound culture shock for me. And the sound of that city, the camaraderie of these musicians, what the type of music they listen to, the type of heroes they have, the type of role model they have, which are totally different from the rest of the country. All this, like, not extra famous, like, jazz masters like Hank Jones, like Roland Anna, like Barry, like Tommy Flanagan, like Kenny Cox. These are all piano players from Detroit. All these hidden masters, Larry Smith, Marcus Belgrave. These are not like people that you see on the cover of Downbeat, but these are like profound jazz masters.
And when we talk of Rodney Whitaker was a young lion in the mid '80s, late '80s and '90s. He played with some very prolific musicians coming up. I look at Detroit because every year I cover the jazz festival there, and my parents and my grandparents are from Detroit. the music scene has always been ultra progressive. I don't say progressive, ultra progressive, because you got electronic music that comes out of Detroit, which is they have the largest free electronic festival in the world, as well as the world's largest free jazz festival in the world. And then you have funk and the soul that came out, and then the gospel.
Motown.
Yeah. What do you attribute to that?
I don't know. It's just a vibe of the city. It's just a vibe, you know. We used to go from a super duper straight ahead jazz club where Marcus Belgrave was playing, Larry Smith was playing, super like cannonball type of burning jazz. We used to go to on Cass Avenue, and then Francisco Mora was playing with Craig Taborn, a young Craig Taborn, and Jaribu Shaib, some crazy Latin free jazz. And everyone was so deep into it, you know. It wasn't superficial. So if somebody was into funk, he was really into funk, not into quasi-funk. You know what I mean? If like some people very religious into real gospel music, they will not travel. They will not do concerts. They will only play and sing churches. So they want you to hear sacred music in the sacred places. They will not commercialize. Like I just did a dissertation of Duke Ellington, Black, Brown, and Beige. Well, Mahalia didn't want to play with Duke. She didn't want to do that project. And Duke had to talk her into it, into do that project. And that's how gospel singers are in Detroit. Gospel, great Hammond organ, gospel Hammond players are like that.
Gospel Music Workshop of America was founded in Detroit by the late James Cleveland. I mean, like I said, and Aretha Franklin, C.L. Franklin, her father had a very...
The Clark sisters.
Yeah, the Clark sisters. I mean, it's just the Winans. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's endless, that the talent that has come out of there. And, you know, Detroit also, I guess what it has done for you too is that it got you moving music forward.
Yeah, because all my best friends are from Detroit. My best man, Greg Burke, he lives in Rome now. He's an avant-garde piano player. He's my best friend. My brother, Calvin Scholar, he lives in Berlin now. He's the music director for Carl Craig, talking about Detroit and techno stuff.
Yeah.
And Rodney Whittaker. We always go back to that first impact that I had with the city. And, you know, even friends here, I can trace them back to somehow connected to Detroit. Barry Harris.
I remember I seem to always feel you near somehow. Every day I hear his lovely tone in every trumpet sound.
studied under a very unique pianist. Jackie Bayard, when we talk about pianist, I know a lot of musicians like yourself who studied under him, God rest his soul. He is a person that really is an unsung hero of the idiom of this music. And explain why, when we think of Jackie, we don't talk about him in great. He and I think Bobby Timmons is another one that are in that same fold. They composed, but they played some very unique music in this idiom.
Well, the reason why I tracked down Jackie Byard is because when Duke needs somebody to play the piano in his band, he will call Jackie Byard. So if Duke will call Jackie to play piano for his big band, and I'm like not Duke fanatics, more than that, I said, I got to get together with this guy. And by listening to the records and with Mingus, which also Mingus was a great Duke fan, so he needed that way of playing the piano that encompassed the stride to the bebop to the avant-garde. So that's the reason why I had to go to Jackie's house, because name me a piano player who can go from stride piano to avant-garde and cover everything in between.
And explain it.
I mean, his lessons with him, you know, I have all his notes, man. It was like all about sound of the instrument, the sound of an instrument, and learning the instrument. See, that's a lot of people, they get carried away by learning the music, the chops, the licks, you know. But actually, Jackie wanted me to actually learn the piano, like how to play, how to command the instrument first, and then improvise. And I still do practice tons of stuff on the piano, classical music.
Antonio, you are in the world of classical. You are a composer. How has classical music intertwined with jazz in you teaching as well as how you playing on that band stage?
Well, I mean, music is music. If you hear Duke's through composed music, that's classical music. You know, is great music. Duke used to say there's just good music and bad music. No, I used to say there's music played well and music not played well. So when I hear a great piece of music, you know, I just learned some madrigals from 1400 to learn some modal counterpoint. And man, that's pure beauty. You know, when somebody is command is its idiom, whether is that Ravi Shankar, or is Coltrane, or is Kim Burrell, or is Leonard Bernstein. It's all music. It's all great music, and it all comes down to my language.
Tell the viewers out here who are some of the headliners at this year's festival.
Well, first of all, I want always to include orchestral jazz.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the famous Minton's Playhouse here in Harlem, New York. I'd like to personally congratulate the talented Antonio Ciacca for putting on together an upcoming festival, the La Spezia Jazz Festival, which takes place in Italy in the next couple of weeks. As well as I'd like to personally thank he and his wife for arranging my time with him, as well as other members of the band here at Minton's. Also, I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Minton's for their warm hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.